All right. My last name being Andersen, I've been training for this top of the alphabet moment since my very first kindergarten roll call. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you to the Business Record for the opportunity, and for all of you for taking time to be here tonight. So of my 10 ideas, 3 rose to the top for tonight's event. Number 1, stop shoulding yourself. If you say it fast, it sounds a little more fun. Number 2, perfect doesn't exist. And number 3, begin with your end in mind. And it may sound a little morbid, but I really do mean dying. Perfectionism and shoulding continuously demand us to live outside of ourselves. We're fed by best, consumed with comparison to how we think things should be or should look, or how we measure up to others and even former versions of ourselves, looking outside instead of in. We're clinging to this linear flight plan we created when setting our sights on our futures. Often, we begin plotting that flight plan before we're even old enough to have our pilot's license. When you created your flight plan, how old were you? Do you remember what your destination was? Did you know where you'd be refueling, where your connections were, and even what your ETAs were for each of those stops? I feel like I always had a flight plan, though I can't tell you exactly when I actually made it. I knew I'd go to college after high school, get married, have kids, and retire, live happily ever after, right? That was my long-haul flight plan. The regional routes of career, friendships, romantic relationships, to name a few, were all supported by my pre-flight checklists. I always had general deadlines for marriage and kids, and my career strategy continued to evolve as I did. Strategic deliverables, leadership opportunities, corporate ladders, even the individual projects that supported those were part of the plan. Now you can thank Top Gun Maverick for this aviation analogy. I saw it last week, still a little obsessed. Now if you've seen the movie, and even if you haven't, there's a scene where a bunch of birds interfere with the fighter jets while they're in the middle of an enemy conflict, of course. So the birds hit the plane, the engines blow, crisis ensues. It's a really big turning point in the movie, as you can imagine. Bird strike, that's what they called it. Now I was a textbook pilot following my perfect flight plan, and I was pretty happy with my life. I'd gone to college, I'd got my master's degree, I had great jobs, and was married. Until age 32, when the flock of fear, the perfectionist parrots, and the disoriented dodo birds attacked. Bird strike. After 2 miscarriages and a 2-year marriage, I found myself divorced. Birds were crapping all over my flight plan and my aircraft. Feathers were flying everywhere. I couldn't see squat. I had 1 engine on the fritz, and it took everything I had to keep the plane under control. I was in a tailspin for the first time. Now, there are countless stories of heroism and bravery in times of tragedy, people explaining they don't have any fear in the moment as they think with indescribable clarity in a crisis, crawl out of a crashed vehicle, or spring into action to save someone. Nothing wakes you up like knowing you're going to die. It's called mortality motivation. But how do you create that urgency when you and everyone you love is safe and healthy, or going through what we often see as just the normal trials of life, like a divorce, average Jill problems, right? My tailspin wasn't that severe, gratefully, but it sure delivered clarity that I hadn't experienced before. It's the closest I'd come to mortality motivation. I realized I'd been asking the wrong questions. Instead of asking others, where should I go? What should I do? I started asking myself, how do I want to be? How do I want to experience this one shot at human life? I chose to be a super aunt instead of feeling I should have kids of my own. I chose a man who supports me in being the very best version of myself. I even asked him to marry me, and he said yes. I chose to do a 180 and do work that feeds my soul instead of feeling like I should keep climbing the corporate ladder, even though I was doing very, very well. I had way more choices than I recognized, and I finally grasped that my fulfillment was on me. Now, my invitation to you is to imagine the moment. You're in the cockpit, the alarms are going off, hey, just like that. And you're going down. This is it. This is perfect timing. This is it. You're dying. You're dying. Are you agonizing about your should-haves, or are you at peace with how you piloted your one shot at human life? And as I make my final approach for landing, I hope that you'll remember that life, my friends, is not about the perfect flight plan or about the fanciest, most high-tech aircraft. It's about how you, the pilot, choose to fly.